All right, everybody, good morning. It is Thursday. It is day number 4 of free agency, and we're going to have another packed schedule today. First of all, I'm doing this video instead of doing a wrap-up video last night because I meant to do a wrap-up video last night. It would have been appropriate because the Seahawks actually did a couple of things, but after the Bleacher Report stream, I honestly was so tired, I just kind of fell asleep, and by the time I woke up, there was no point in trying to upload a video then. So I figured I'd just upload something before the stream started today. So here it is. Call this kind of a late wrap-up video to yesterday's action, right? But we certainly spent more than enough time discussing the things that did happen yesterday for the Seahawks. They signed two players, and they signed two players that I think are going to be a fairly impactful part of the upcoming NFL season for them. So it's certainly an improvement over what we had seen over the first couple of days. And I know we signed Darnold that first day, but the reaction to that was very mixed. And I would certainly argue that whether or not that was a good thing was very debatable. These two signings, I think, are much more. It's much easier to appreciate them. Not that everybody does, but um, I think these signings go down much easier. So, one thing that I want to say real quick here is last night we did get the DeMarcus Lawrence contract details in a general sense. We still don't have the exact year-to-year cap hits, but one thing that I do want to say is that this ended up being a lot more friendly than reported. Apparently, I've got the Ari Mirnov tweet up on screen, but I saw this a bunch of other places. The Seahawks got DeMarcus Lawrence for 3 years, 32.5 million, not 42, 32.5. And incentives could take it up to 42. Incentives could add nearly 10 million to the total value. Now, that's a lot of incentives. Most NFL contracts these days have some incentives, but they tend to be a pretty small part of the deal. They tend to just be a few million. This is a significant portion of that deal, and it makes it a little more friendly. I'm assuming, although I'm not sure because we haven't seen the contract, I'm assuming that whatever incentives there are, they will not be assumed to be part of the initial the initial cap hit because he barely played last year. So I seriously doubt whatever incentives there are will be things that he will be expected to meet based on his last season's production, but we'll just have to wait on that. So that's one thing that I wanted to say here real quick. This deal ended up being even more friendly than we thought. And not that it's a complete one-to-one comparison, but keep something in mind here. One thing that we learned last night is that the Tennessee Titans signed Dre'Mont Jones. They signed Dre'Mont Jones to a 1-year, $10 million deal. So the Titans get the player that we released, Dre'Mont Jones, on a deal that is $10 million per year for 1 year. The Seahawks got DeMarcus Lawrence on a 3-year deal that is just over $10 million a year. Now, think about what Dre'Mont Jones was for this team the last couple years. Think about what DeMarcus Lawrence has been the last few years when healthy, and tell me you're not pretty excited to make a move from one guy to the other guy on a contract that, if anything, is probably better, but at worst is equivalent. So if you were questioning this contract, and I think some people initially did, it's a little harder to question now, I think. So the reality is, I doubt that the incentive stuff is going to play that big of a role here, because ultimately this is likely going to be something in the realm of a 2-year deal of about 18 million with maybe a little bit of dead cap on the 3rd year. So while DeMarcus Lawrence's deal looks like it's going to be about 2 years, let's call it 22 million or 24 million, that's still a lot better than Dre'Mont Jones' 1 year, 10 million. Spreading that cap hit out across 3 years is way better than just taking it on all at once, like the Dre'Mont Jones deal looks like it is. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I know DeMarcus Lawrence is a lot older than Dre'Mont Jones, but he fits much better. He's a much better player, and he brings things to the table that Draymond Jones does not. DeMarcus Lawrence is a great locker room a leader. Draymond Jones is someone who has a reputation for being one of the best locker room guys in football. There is some value there. This team has a few guys who seem like they're stepping into that leadership role, but probably not enough yet. So this is looking pretty good. I don't think there's anything to be upset about now here. If there was before, that's not to say there's no risk here, but if there was no risk, he would cost a lot more, right? If DeMarcus Lawrence wasn't coming off an injury ruined 2024 season, you would not be able to get him at this price. He would cost way, way more because he'd be far more easier to covet. So that needs to be understood. Okay, so moving on from just discussing the DeMarcus Lawrence contract stuff, though. Obviously, he was the big get of the day, and I do think it's a good idea. I do think that he is a lot of things that the Seahawks need. I do think that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a pretty reasonable signing as well. It's not something to jump up and down about, but it's a reasonable short-term deal that isn't going to really damage this team's short-term or long-term cap space. He does provide a skill set that this offense needs, and he played the best football of his career last year in the Clint Kubiak offense with Spencer Rattler at quarterback for a good chunk of it. Like think about that for a second. Whatever little you think about Sam Darnold, and there's obviously a wide range of takes on Sam Darnold, he is certainly better than Spencer Rattler as a rookie. Spencer Rattler, I still like him a little bit more than the average person, I think, but I would never say that he was a good quarterback last year. I would never even say he was an average quarterback last year. And there's clearly something to what Kubiak wants to do with him. If MVS had played his entire season last year in New Orleans, if he had gotten all 17 games, there's a very good chance he gets up right up near 1,000 yards. There is. Based on what he was doing in the window of games that he did have, based on the fact that he missed a lot of the games he could have played with Derek Carr, and based on a lot of the games that he could have played before everybody on the Saints got injured. It's possible. Again, maybe he doesn't get as many reps if guys like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed don't get hurt, but if you project it out to 17 games, you're right there. So, something to keep in mind there as well. So, I thought both signings were fine, but what is it going to be for? That's what we're trying to figure out going into what's going to happen today and tomorrow and going forward. This team has still done practically nothing to address this offensive line. They've lost Laken Tomlinson, and they've quote-unquote replaced him with Josh Jones, except not really, because Josh Jones is a swing tackle first and foremost. So, you've built a team that I think will have a great defense. I think this Seahawks defense in 2025 will be great. But what is it for if your offense ends up being so bad that the defense gets hung out to dry? We've seen Seahawks teams with great defenses that had the offense hang them out to dry. It's happened in recent years. It's happened quite a bit in recent memory. And MVS is a perfectly fine signing. Nothing wrong with it. But he's not going to be the thing that makes your offense good when you have done nothing to address this offensive line, and you still probably need another prolific receiver. Now, whether or not you decide to get that receiver in the draft or free agency is something that I'm pretty open to. I don't have a very strong take on one being way preferable to the other. It really just depends on how you plan on running your offense in 2025. But I do not believe this team is going to be able to get away with just using draft picks to fix this line. We've been trying to do that for a while. A lot of players that are currently on the Seahawks on the roster are players that they drafted to their offensive line. and it hasn't worked in those previous years. I'm not sure why I'm supposed to assume it's going to work this year. So there's work to be done. We still have plenty of money. We don't know exactly how much, and I know people are going to ask that. I don't know how much cap space we have because we don't know what these cap hits are on Lawrence or Darnold. So we need more information. But I do know that unless these contracts are set up very stupid, we have plenty of cap space. I'm not worried about it. I don't think anybody should be worried about it. Push comes to shove, there are ways to create extra cap space anyway. A couple of notes here real quick at the end of the video. First, a lot of people the first 2 days were requesting this, so I did set this up now that I'm actually at my normal setup. So this is what the screen looks like when I'm streaming the free agency stream, which will start in a couple of hours here. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this screen, but I added this page here, which has a list of the remaining free agents. You can see basically anybody who hasn't been signed yet that might be of some interest on some level. I didn't really sort it that finely, but it offers up a list of the good players that are still free agents. So if that's something that you wanted on the stream and you were disappointed you didn't get it the first 2 days, it is here now. Right? Okay, that's number one. Number two, I want to remind people that today's free agency stream ends at noon, so I can stream with the Hawk's Nest, and I'm probably going to make a new stream for the rest of the day after the Hawk's Nest stream is over. So keep that in mind. And tune into that Hawk's Nest stream, by the way. We're going to have some interesting things to say, I think. But yeah, that's really about it. See you guys later. Go Hawks. And see you guys in a couple of hours.